Hey everybody, welcome back. Thank you for joining me again. I'm going to start off this video with a little bit of cyber panhandling. My phone gets cut off really soon, in the next couple of days. So if any of you would like to continue to see daily videos, please check out my PayPal link below in the description and throw me a couple bones. I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, these daily videos might get cut short. But I would like to keep making them, and I enjoy doing it. So, that being said, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about tonight. Okay, crows. Let's talk about crows. The bird. There is a ley line in Britain called St. Michael's ley line. It's actually two different ley lines that go together, the Michael and the Mary ley line. The Mary ley line tends to go through valleys and bodies of water, natural springs, waterfalls. The Michael ley line tends to go over high points, hilltops, lots of sacred sites, including ancient stone circles, hinges. It goes all the way from the top of Britain down through the bottom and exits around Cornwall and goes all the way to Jerusalem, and it extends into Brittany in France. The reason this is being brought up in a video about crows is because there's something really interesting along this ley line. There are islands to the north and to the south of this ley line that are called tidal islands. A lot of them are shaped like bowls. Whenever the tide comes in, it fills up the bowl with water. And then whenever the tide goes out, it leaves a full bowl of water above the waves. They found out recently that these are actually about 5,000-year-old man-made islands. They're not natural. These are 5,000-year-old man-made islands. And they extend all the way across the English Channel and up north as well. I believe this is because the ley line was used for navigation on Britain to get across the British Isle. It traveled across the St. Michael's line. One of the biggest islands to the south of Cornwall is called Mont St. Michael, I believe. It's a castle. They actually have an underwater tunnel that goes to it for a subway. Whenever the tide's just right, you can actually walk across a man-made bridge that goes all the way to the island. But if you don't catch it at the right time, you'll be knee-deep in water. I believe that dowsers would use dowsing rods and landmarks from on top of hills to navigate across St. Michael's line. And funny enough, if you're in Cornwall on top of a hill during Beltane or May Day, Beltane is of course a pagan holiday where you do the maypole. Young virgin women will dance around the maypole. It's called Beltane for Baltane, Baal, the blood god of the Phoenicians, where we get the word obelisk. That's why they dance around a big phallus representation in the maypole. If you're standing on a hill in the bottom of Cornwall, the south of Cornwall, and look down the St. Michael's line, on Beltane the sun actually rises right down the center. Well, dowsing only helps you whenever you're going across land. How would these people navigate without a compass? Well, ever heard the saying, as a crow flies? this comes from ancient mariners. They made these tidal islands, these big bowls that get filled up with water, specifically for the crows, the sea crows. In fact, Merlin gets his name from the sea crow. I thought that Merlin was a really dumb name when I traced the etymology back, and I realized it means sea fortress or seabird. I was like, that's kind of a lame name for the most powerful wizard of all, but then I realized why the sea crow was so important. See, ancient ships, they had something called a crow's nest. Most people think of this as just a place that a mariner, a sailor, would climb up on the top of a mast and look out with his binoculars and monoculars, his spyglass, to see what other ships were coming around the horizon, a high point, a vantage point. Well, in ancient ships, the crow's nest was actually a crow's nest. They would have their sea crows up in the nest, and they'd fly along with the boat from a high vantage point, way higher than the mast itself. They would stop to rest in the crow's nest. But the sea crows would fly towards these tidal islands, these man-made big bowls that would be filled with water whenever the tide went out. What ancient mariners would do is someone would live on or near one of these tidal islands, and whenever the water was coming in to the bowl to fill it up, they would fill the water with bait so that fish would swim in and get trapped whenever the tide went out. So there'd be these huge bowls of water filled to the brim with fish. The sea crow would be flying so high that they could see these individual bowls. They could see these tidal islands writhing with fish. So they'd swim towards the fish, and the boats would follow the birds. This is why the sea crow is important. This is why Merlin took his name from the sea crow. Even Gandalf from Lord of the Rings is called the storm crow for this very purpose. It's because it is a being that has a higher vantage point and acts as a guide for those below, like a spirit guide. So that's where the term crow's nest and as the crow flies, that's where these terms come from. That's why crows and ravens and other seabirds have been seen as symbols of good luck, like the albatross. This is why we have a crow's nest. We use birds for navigational purposes. And if you know my theory of the pillars and Atlantis, the egg and the pillars, the Orphic egg on top of the pillars, it's one of my older videos. You'll know that this supports my theory of how the knowledge of Atlantis was passed down after the flood. We once had a very close relationship with birds. We raised them to fulfill a very important purpose: navigation across a sea that was uncharted, that was pre-compass. So the crow has been leading us, and we followed it for a long time. That's why they're seen as messengers of the spirit. That's why they're seen as beings who take the souls of the dead to their final resting place, because they're messengers of God. They lead us. I found that to be interesting, and I wanted to pass it along. The crow, Merlin, these tidal islands aligned to St. Michael's line, going all the way back to Jerusalem, and the fact that it's lined up with Beltane ties us all back into ancient Phoenicia. And the Phoenicians, who were the only ones to sail past the Pillars of Hercules, the Straits of Gibraltar, they colonized Britain. They named it Britain because of its large amounts of tin, which they used to make bronze. So, just wanted to throw that out there. I thought it was pretty cool information. Let me know if you dig this. Give me a thumbs up. Share it. Definitely throw me a comment. I love talking to you guys. And if you have a couple extra bones to throw me, keep my phone on, I'd appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.